lot of people have their retirement savings in a 401k or an IRA, and it can mean a big tax bill in retirement, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We're going to learn about a couple right now who did some planning, took control, and saved a lot of money in taxes. Clint, tell us about our couple.
Yeah, as we walk through this case study, we've got a couple who lives in Iowa. They are 67 years old. Each of them has an IRA that is pre-tax of $500,000, and then they also have $100,000 of non-qualified assets that they have at the bank. So a total portfolio of $1.1 million. As we think through this case study, we have to use some rate of return. For this particular example, we're looking at a 7% rate of return over time with the way that they are invested and the time frame with which we're looking at.
And they're also going to have Social Security income. So they have their investments to derive income, but Social Security income, each one of them is going to have $2,500 a month coming from Social Security. We do assume a cost of living adjustment on that Social Security income. We're going to assume a conservative rate of 2%. And then as they conducted their lifestyle plan, they determined that they needed $90,000 of income for the first 10 years, those go-go years of their retirement. $90,000 after the go-go years, they don't need as much. They're going to drop that down to $75,000 of income. And we use an inflation adjustment assumption with this as well of 3% over the course of their retirement.
When we start to think about what their projected tax bill is, what we're just going to assume is they're going to live to age 95. During the course of their retirement, what do you think that their tax bill might be? We'll let you at home start to think, what could that be? We've saved $1.1 million. What do you think that their tax bill might be, Loren and Molly?
My guess is it's going to be big.
My clue for you, viewer at home, is it's high. I've got it right here. You guys care if I take this?
Take it.
It's a big number. $1.1 million. Ironically, the same amount of money that they saved for retirement.
That's the tax bill.
The tax bill.
That's not the amount that they had saved for retirement. I mean, coincidentally it is, but that's the amount they actually paid in taxes over the course of their retirement. And that the majority of that is because they spent a good amount of years in retirement. That certainly helped increase that tax bill. But the big contributor to that is all of that money was saved underneath pre-tax accounts, never been taxed before. So when they took the income out outside of Social Security, it was all taxable. And that taxable nature of that money, that income, increased the taxes on their Social Security income. And then, of course, at their RMD age, they were mandated to take distributions. As we talked about before, that's taxable at ordinary income as well.
Yeah, and it's important to note that they didn't have a lot of other levers to pull in retirement to get different type of assets. We started the show and we talked about the different types of ways that retirement income can be taxed. They really had only one option, where they had to go to pay earned income on those dollars that they saved pre-tax. They didn't have a lot of choices. And that's something that we often see, is the families have saved in those pre-tax buckets, not necessarily realizing that that tax bill might be bigger than they think in retirement.
Yeah, because a lot of the talk going into retirement is, I need to save $1 million. I need to save $3 million, whatever that number is, without a lot of attention to where is that money saved? Where's the $1 million saved? Because just like with this couple, they had $1.1 million saved, but they didn't get to spend all of that 1.1 because they had this big retirement tax bill that they also had to pay as they go. So it's not just about how much money do you have saved, it's about where is that money saved? Have you created tax diversification within your overall plan? Because if you have, that is going to help mitigate the impact of the retirement tax bill and give you a lot more options as far as the money you can spend, increasing your spendable income, decreasing your tax bill.
And you might wonder, how can this be that they have that big of a tax bill? And what you see is on this chart that we pulled up on the screen, it is actually going to increase the tax brackets that they are in throughout retirement as their required minimum distribution goes up and up and up. And they find themselves actually into the 32% tax bracket in those later years in retirement with really not a lot of control at that point to really change much.
Okay, I'm here with the good news. I've got the good news. I get to deliver the good news. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. There are some things that they could do or can do now, maybe at 57, 59, before retirement, to improve their situation. Enter the Roth conversion.
Enter the Roth conversion. It's a part of one's overall tax plan, or it can be. So the first thing is make sure you create a tax plan. Everybody's tax plan can be different based on your circumstances, but a Roth conversion can be a really powerful strategy. Simply what that means is you take money from the pre-tax IRA or 401k plan that you never paid taxes on before. You convert that over to the Roth. Once it's in the Roth, it grows tax-free. You take the qualified distribution out later down the road. It comes to you tax-free. Now, the disadvantage is you do have to pay taxes on that money in the year you convert the money from the pre-tax to the Roth. So you want to be very careful with this strategy. And if you have $1 million in a pre-tax account like this couple, it doesn't mean you want to convert all of that $1 million in one particular year, or you want to convert all of the $1 million over the course of a 10-year time frame. Everybody's plan is different. You need to make sure you have that strategy laid out for you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and apply the Roth conversion to this couple. Is that where you were going?
Yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Clint.
So
Yeah.
let's just look at this chart. This shows this family paying a little bit more in tax earlier in retirement. But like you mentioned, Loren, once they've paid the tax bill on those dollars that are in that Roth bucket, they're able to grow tax-free forever. And they are not going to be subject to forced distributions as those pre-tax balances will. So when they do that a little bit earlier in retirement, they are able to save $400,000 across their entire cumulative retirement tax bill. A huge impact of dollars that they can keep, spend, or pass on rather than send to the IRS.
Yeah, because what they did in this example is they took advantage of those early years in retirement where they were actually in the 12% federal tax bracket, right? They didn't have the high income from the earned wages like they did when they were working. They were taking Social Security income and distributions from their IRA, and then they filled up that 12% tax bracket with Roth conversion over a period of years, which really enabled them to save that big amount of money over the course of their retirement, because they had now this tax diversification where money was growing tax-free that didn't require distribution, and they could take out later down the road tax-free in combination with their Social Security income and their other pre-tax income from the IRA.
And the other thing to always keep in mind is this is showing both of them living for pretty long into their retirement. If one of them were to pass away sooner, now you're in single tax brackets, which are going to fill up even quicker, and that could actually lead to a higher retirement tax bill if one of them passes away sooner than living out into their 90s.
Our couple was able to avoid the 32% tax bracket. They were able to lower their tax bill from $1.1 million to $700,000 and save $400,000.